Hey everyone, welcome to another hot take, and I'm a little hot about this one. Talking about the Joker movie and its connection to incels? What the hell, man? Okay, so the report is the U.S. Army has warned soldiers, be careful if you're going to see the Joker movie because an incel might show up and shoot up the place, is the gist of the whole thing. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would you announce something like this? Why would you announce that there could be a possible shooting? Mentally ill people in this country, and there are a tiny minority of them, who are violent. So get off my back, mental health advocates. You know that's true. There are a tiny minority of mentally ill people who turn to violence. They can't help themselves. They're all messed up. It happens. So why would you announce something like this, thereby encouraging someone who might hear this to go, oh, there's a place where I could shoot up? I mean, it's just ridiculous. U.S. Army made a terrible mistake doing that. But it, to me, brings up so many questions. The first question is this a credible threat? Okay, so if this is a credible threat, let's assume it is. The U.S. Army must somehow be monitoring incels enough that they feel that they could go on a shooting rampage, which probably can't be true because incels in general are just, they're barely a movement, if you call it a movement. They're basically angry virgins. And there are lots of angry people in the world who never, there are as many incels that resort to violence as there are mentally ill people. I mean, the percentage is probably virtually the same. It's a very, very tiny minority. And that he's an incel or not has no bearing, really, on the triggering effect. Some people just call themselves whatever because they identify with it because, hey, that gives them the loose excuse to commit whatever bad behavior they're going to commit. So you have to believe, if this is a credible threat, that the U.S. Army is somehow wasting more taxpayer money monitoring incels 24/7 on the internet, and that they have to monitor enough of them to consider it a national threat to warn all the soldiers in the Army. There's probably more incels in the Army than any place else, really, when you think about it. But even so, they're warning the soldiers. They're not, going through their own ranks and saying, hey, incels, relax. So I don't think this could possibly be a credible threat at all. I don't think the U.S. Army knows what the hell it's talking about. So why did they make this announcement? Well, the other explanation is probably the real one, which is someone at the U.S. Army is kind of like my mother. They're older, they read newspapers, they see stuff on websites, and they get excited, like, oh, God, what is this? Incels? Incels in the Joker movies. Oh, I heard bad things about them. You better be careful. Don't go to the movies. Don't go see that movie. That's what my mother would say. So the U.S. Army is like that. There's some older person in the Army who said, oh, God, I read on the internet there are incels, and they're terrible people, and we should warn our soldiers. That's probably the most likely explanation. Someone took it upon themselves, and then one of these woke media outlets ran with the story because they'll take an opportunity to tear down anything, and that's how we've gotten this news story. Now, there is a third option, which I have no proof of, but this is what I know about Hollywood. Hollywood has, for a long time, had a good relationship, good in quotes, with the U.S. military. In return for letting them use their toys in various movies like Top Gun 2 or, any military movie you could think of, big budget. The U.S. military, in turn, has actual guys from the Pentagon that go through scripts to make sure the military doesn't look bad. Which, by the way, U.S. military, is an incredible waste of taxpayer money. If I ever became president, that would be one of the things I would ban. You work for everyone, including people who make bad movies about the U.S. government. You have no say in what movies should be. There is all this military equipment, American citizens who happen to work in movies should be able to use it. Of course, there should be some sort of fee, but that should be a standard fee for everybody. Everybody should be able to use that equipment, and everybody should be able to make movies whether they criticize the military or not. That should not be a factor in your decision making at all. You shouldn't be sending guys to look at scripts. That's an incredible waste of time. Those guys are in the military. They should be doing military things. Looking at movie scripts is not a military thing. Stop doing it. It doesn't matter if someone makes a movie critical of the U.S. Army. Doesn't matter, because the U.S. Army should be able to sustain itself. If you're being criticized, then you should look inward and say, why are we being criticized here? Did we do something wrong? So don't give me this whole, Vietnam and all the bad Vietnam movies. That's on you and the U.S. government. That's not on the people making the movies. Clean up your own act. And trust me, if this country is attacked, people step up. Look at September 11th. People stepped up. People joined the army in droves after September 11th. So you don't need to advertise. You don't need to be checking movies. It's a complete waste of money. But I digress. Getting back to the Joker movie. So this relationship goes on and on. How do these Hollywood guys are great at networking, right? So you got a guy in the military, and a Hollywood guy calls him up and says, hey, we need to use some of your tools, some of your tanks or whatever for this movie. Yeah, well, maybe. What's your favorite TV show? Military guy probably says something like JAG. Oh, I love JAG. I love that show. Oh, I happen to know the producer at JAG. How would you like to do a walk-on at JAG? Oh my God, that would be incredible. Now, this is a non-movie guy. So walking onto a movie set, being paid to be in a TV show or something, that would be like, that blows people's heads off when you offer that kind of stuff to nobody who's not known, right? I mean, there are people who have done that from the military. They've gone on to big careers. Look at the guy from Full Metal Jacket. Guy had a huge career afterwards. Hosted shows, was in other movies. It can happen. So it's very enticing. So this Hollywood guy gives some general like a guest spot on JAG. He gets 2 lines. Oh, he's thrilled. Next time he calls him up and says, hey, listen, General so-and-so. Hey, buddy, just watch your episode on JAG. It was great. Oh, thank you for that. I love JAG. I love being on the show. It was a thrill of a lifetime. What can I do for you? Well, we got this movie coming out. And, it's a bit edgy, but it's also been, hoisted up by the critics. And I don't think we're going to do very well unless people think, well, it's really edgy. So maybe you could use your influence in the military there to, announce something, say something. Oh, I don't know. What could I do? I mean, I could only announce stuff to the military. Yeah, but what kind of stuff do you announce? Like, do you announce anything movie related? No, not really. I mean, I suppose if there was some kind of danger associated with it, we'd have to warn the soldiers. Oh, that would be great. I just read this article on Slate somewhere that, they're doing stuff with incels in the movie, or there's some kind of incel connection to the movie. What if you did something about that? There was an incel guy who shot up parts of Canada, right? Yeah, it's true. I could just announce that, we're worried that the soldiers might be hurt by an incel at the movie. That would be great, General. That would give us some really good advertising. And then people would talk about it, and the marketing on that. It's an anti-marketing push, but those things work. Yeah, buddy, no problem. I'll make the announcement tomorrow. And that's the way it could happen, in my imagination. But, we don't have any proof of that, of course. You're never going to find any proof of that. How are you going to find proof of a phone call? You'd have to dig through the NSA's vast network of recorded phone calls, and maybe you could find it, but beyond that, you're probably not going to find any evidence of this kind of collusion if it exists. And that's just speculation on my part. But it makes me mad either way because, quite frankly, the Joker movie, I've already done my say on it in the trailer, and it's not the kind of movie that I feel is a good fit for a comic book character. Now, that's not to say I don't like depressing movies, or sad movies, or movies that are edgy. I do. But when you're talking about a character called the Joker, who's part of the Batman milieu, who's aimed at children primarily, I think it's inappropriate to use a character like that for this. I do. I think that's too much. If you're going to go that far off the reservation with a character like this, just do a different character. Just do a different guy. It'd probably be a better movie anyway. Probably be riskier. So the idea that they're coming under the radar with one of these really edgy characters by using the Joker, to me, it denigrates the goodwill, if you want to call it, that the Joker and the Batman franchise had. And I think it's a mistake, a long-term mistake for Warner Brothers to do this, because what's the end game here? Are they eventually going to do a Batman movie with Joaquin Phoenix and Batman wailing on this guy? I'm sensing no, but who knows at this point. So anyway, that's my hot take on the Joker. I've heard good things about it, but who could be the judge? I mean, this all comes out of critics. It makes me want to go see the movie when people warn me against it. So I think that's part of the marketing angle. I think it's part of the way you get people in the theaters. I think they're so desperate, the studio is so desperate to get people in the movie theaters again, that they'll pretty much do anything, even something elaborate as this, as my imagined scenario. And it's imagined. I have no proof. Just saying.